All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. My name is Anna Rains. I'm the programs coordinator for the Municipal Shelter and Support team at Best Friends. And before I introduce our speaker, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. So everyone is automatically muted for the presentation portion of the webinar. So don't worry about unmuting yourself on accident. It's not possible. If you have a question at any point, please put it into the Q&A box. The questions that go through there will be submitted to us. We can only see them on our end, but once we answer them, they should show up in the chat. So we may pause a few times throughout the presentation to answer any questions if they're relevant to the topic that we're talking about. Keep an eye on the chat box again for links to resources. I'm going to be putting a link in that chat box for an exciting town hall that we have tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time, covering return to owner efforts that are going on across the country. So that's 6 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Awesome town hall. Everyone join if you can. All right, and we'll go ahead and introduce our speaker. Today, presenting for us is Nick Walton. He is the manager of National Shelter Support for Best Friends Animal Society. And oh, one more thing. Sorry, guys. Please note that this webinar is being recorded, and that recording is going to be available to everyone that registered. It'll come in an email tomorrow, probably. All right, here we go. Take it, Nick.
Thank you very much. Yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Nick Walton. I am the manager of National Shelter Support with Best Friends Animal Society. Today, we're going to be talking about community engagement and what I like to call the life-saving philosophy. And I call it a philosophy because I think it's just that, right? I don't think of community engagement in that term as something that you do for 20 minutes at the end of your shift if you happen to have the time. I think community engagement is something that you should take with you on every single call that you work, right? Whether that be something as simple as the dog at large or something that may be a little bit more complex. Utilizing this philosophy on every call that you work is really going to make a difference for your staff, the animals of your community, and the community as a whole. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Oh, real quick, I just wanted to let everybody here know that this presentation is typically presented to animal control officers, but that doesn't mean that everybody can't learn from it. So welcome all. Thank you for being here. So a little bit about myself, from Atlanta, born and raised. I've been working with animals my whole life, literally since I was like 8 years old. My dad said that we could get a bulldog if I taught my other dog, Maggie, how to sit. And so I went to the library, I got a dog training book, and ever since then, it's been history. So I started legally, or professionally, I should say, working with animals at PetSmart. I was a dog trainer. As soon as I was legally able to work, I was a dog trainer at PetSmart. Eventually broke out of PetSmart, became a behaviorist. And that's kind of throughout my work as a behaviorist in Atlanta, how I got introduced to Fulton County Animal Services, which is where I fell in love with the field, where I fell in love with field work. I was a field training officer as well as cruelty investigator. I think that this career and this path is oftentimes overlooked, and I can't stand that. So, you know, our organization at one point in time was definitely going through a form of a transition. And I like to think that I helped influence that transition a little bit by operating a little bit differently, right? I wouldn't issue citations unless I really needed to. And I would always have a truck full of resources, whether that be dog food, leashes, collars, toys, whatever it may be. I tried to keep it on my truck. And, you know, the years go by, and currently Fulton County Animal Services is a model. And so I'm really proud of them, but I'm especially proud of all animal control officers in this career. We are much more than just dog catchers, and I believe that. Currently in my current role, what I do is I work with organizations all across the country, right? And I help them overcome a series of problems, whether that be through mentorships, assessments, trainings, you name it. If you need help and if you need support, I'm here to help you out. And so is my whole team. So throughout this presentation, you're going to see a number of quotes. I put the important parts in bold, but this quote here, I find to be a little bit rigid, right? Community engagement is a dynamic relational. It just feels very kind of rigid. And I think of community engagement more in terms of like fluid, right? It's nothing that's by the book. Nothing's black and white. Everything is situational and everything is fluid. And so being able to adapt is one of the most important parts of this. Although this definition isn't bad, right? I just feel like it's a little bit too tight. Law enforcement is built upon the trust and needs of its community. This is a powerful quote right here. To think societal relationships are secondary priority in running as public, look, this is strong. This is coming from a police chief. So we've all seen these pictures in the past. We've all seen them in one form or another. Everybody at one point in time, if you have spent time working in the field, you have been called the dog catcher. That's just a matter of the fact. And you know, that's really how it started out. Animal control, when it first started out, was the dog catcher. They would get paid, what, a nickel per dog or something like that. And then at the end of the day, what they would do is they would take all the dogs from that day, bring it to the river and sink it. That's what animal control was. And that's the fact of the matter. And so we don't do that now, but we still get called the dog catcher, right? Is it valid? Is it justified? I don't know. I don't think so. But this is the history of it. And the media doesn't help us out, right? If you watch any, whether that be Lady and the Tramp, whether that be, you know, Parks and Rec, anything in the media that you have seen an animal control officer, they're depicted as just this mean old dog catcher that just wants to ruin everybody's day. And we need to start to shift that narrative. We need to come together as a community and really change the way that we're thought of in our communities. And there's ways to do that. And it's happening. It's happening as we speak all across the country with great success. The benefits are countless, and we'll get to the benefits in just a second, but we're taking a more of a proactive approach to enforcement, right? And we're starting to see more compliance with this type of philosophy. And so, you know, I'm really just excited to see what happens next in our industry, because this is such a powerful wave that's sweeping over the nation right now. And it's all helping everybody, right? It's helping the people, it's helping the community, it's helping the pets, it's helping the shelters, it's helping it's a snowball effect that takes place whenever this mindset is embraced, and particularly embraced by everybody on the staff, right? It's important whenever everybody buys in, because that's a force multiplier. That's getting out the good, you know, what you're doing times 2, times 3, times 4, and times 5. And so really, if you come together as a staff and embrace this as a philosophy, you're going to start to see changes within your community and start to see changes in the way that you're looked at within your community. So if you take nothing else at all from this presentation today, there's one thing that I want you to take away from it, which is oftentimes not talked about, right? The benefits of a community-oriented philosophy. My number one, right? The main thing for me personally is officer safety. I hear it all across the country. Oh, you know, well, that's soft. That's soft. No, it's not. Actually, it's actually more beneficial for the officers to implement this type of philosophy because it's basic math, right? If you increase the amount of positive relationships in your community and you decrease the amount of friction in your community, you know, you're going to have a safer workplace environment. And I really put a lot of weight into this right here, officer safety. It's not talked about enough, about how whenever you operate with this manner, you're able to work safely in your community, and then therefore freeing up time for some other stuff. So proactive cruelty prevention is another benefit. I always like to tell the story of the first cruelty case that I ever witnessed, right? Out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. One in particular stands out to me, and it was my very first one. It was this dog that was so skinny, and if you've worked in the field for long enough, you've seen this before, where it was so skinny, it was basically just a breathing pile of bones, right? It's terribly sad. But when I looked at that, what I thought was, this could have been prevented, right? The only reason that it got this bad is because the owner of this animal, the owner of this dog, didn't reach out for help. They didn't trust us, right? The owner of this pet did not trust our agency. And so they did not reach out for help. and then it got this bad. And that concept is proven over and over again that whenever there is an aspect of trust, and if people understand your goals and your intent as an organization, you're going to see people reach out for help before it gets to the point of cruelty. And we're going to dive into this in much more detail in just a minute about the difference between neglect and cruelty, right? But we'll get there. But whenever you operate this way, you're going to see a reduction in animal cruelty. Very important to me. Reduction of animal ordinance violations, right? We've all seen those dogs that get out of the fence, right? Chain link fence, the dog climbs under and it bows out the bottom. So they can go out, but they can't get back in. All that takes is a few minutes of assistance and a few bare bones resources, and you fixed that fence. You fixed the problem. It's not going to happen again, right? Every single person, if you've been in the field more than 6 months, you've been to the same house for the same thing, right? Oftentimes there's those problem houses. But why don't we think more about why we're going back out there again, right? We need to start thinking about, why did the animal get loose? And is there anything that I can do right now to fix that, right? And fix it with the animal owner. So now you're building a relationship with the owner too. If you got a broken crate, right, and a couple zip ties, you can fix that fence. And now granted, that's bare bones and there are better ways to fix a fence. But even the thought of trying to fix it really goes a long way in the community's mind. And it also helps prevent you from going to the same house for the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Increased positive outcomes. Look, we're all in this industry because we love animals. That's just what it is. If you don't love animals and you're in this industry, I'm not sure what to tell you. So why not? Why not increase the positive outcomes for our animals, right? If there's a way to reduce shelter or euthanasia, let's do it. Let's think about doing that and get creative in those processes. So I've also heard across the country, it happens all the time. I'm in this industry because I love animals, right? I'm in this industry because I don't like people and I get along with animals only. Well, if you really love animals, then you need to help the people. That's just what it is. And so I don't like it when I'm not a big believer in that. I think that if you really, really care about these animals, then you will think just as hard about the people of your community, because it is hand in hand. Access to information. So as an officer, this one was big for me. At the beginning of my career, if I found a dog running at large, and I didn't know who the owner was, there was no tags, there was no microchip, and I start knocking on doors, what would happen is people would shut that door in my face, throw up a middle finger, call me a dog catcher. We've all seen it before. But towards the end of my career, what I started to notice was people were being more cooperative with my investigation, because they knew that I wasn't going to get their neighbor caught up in something unnecessarily, whether that be legally or having to come pay money to get your dog out of the shelter. My goal was simply to, as a friend and as a community member, get a dog back to its owner. And whenever people understood my goals and intent, there was more cooperation with my investigations. And this was not only just dogs running at large, this is also animal cruelty investigations, right? And everything in between. When people understand your goals and your intent, they're going to provide more information. It's just, once again, basic math. They don't want their neighbors getting in trouble. They don't want their neighbors to have to pay extra money. But when they know that you're going to do everything you can to help, they're going to tell you where that dog lives. Yeah, 3 doors down on the left with the green shutters, right? If they're not home, they'll get home in a few hours. I don't know. You're just going to have more information. Resources. Look, the resources are key in this, right? And they're key for not only the animals, right? How many times have you given out a bag of dog food and you're like, man, I know that dog is going to eat good tonight, right? That is going to be a happy dog. And so you're helping the pets with these resources. You're helping the people financially with not needing to go buy that bag of dog food. But most importantly here is what you're doing is you're building relationships. Resources equal relationships. Relationships are the beating heart of everything that we're doing here in this community-oriented philosophy. Without these relationships, you're not going to go very far. And so each person that you speak to is a person that you can develop a relationship with, and a genuine relationship. It's important to be authentic and really care about the work that you're doing, or else it won't come across as such. And we'll touch on that a little bit later in just a second. But when the community understands your goals and your intent, they understand what you need in order to accomplish these goals. They're going to come out in forces. You're going to be drowning in resources. You're not going to know what to do with all of them. And it will happen once there's traction, and once your community catches on and they get behind you and they understand your goals and your intent, you're going to have more resources coming through the door, therefore allowing you to do even more work in the field. Lower call volume speaks for itself. Everybody loves a lower call volume, right? If you reduce animal cruelty, fact. If you reduce ordinance violations, fact. You increase officer safety. If you do all of these things, your call volume is naturally going to decline. Now you have more time. Now you have more time. You can go to a dog park, right? Throw some tennis balls with some dogs. Just introduce yourself. Hey, I'm Nick. You know, even though you're wearing a badge, you don't always need to carry that badge mindset with you, right? Always wear it, of course, but you don't need to. If you're going to a dog park to build relationships, you don't need to be Officer Walton. Right? You can be Nick. I'm just here to help, play with some dogs. Have a good day. Here's some information about some upcoming shot events or whatever you may have going on. We're changing kind of the perspective and the flow and the tone of our conversations. And that will manifest itself in a lower call volume. Greater sense of fulfillment. This one is underrated as well. I hear it all the time. I don't take my work home with me. Yes, you do. You do take your work home with you. As bad as you want to deny that, it's fact. So if you spend all day long getting cussed out, right? Getting cussed out, getting called the dog catcher, middle finger to the face, you're naturally going to take a little bit of that home with you, whether you want to or not. Whether as bad as you think, you know, your job is, and you don't take it home, you do. Point blank, period. Look, there's been days after work where I would drive home and I didn't even listen to the radio. I'm going the speed limit, just like broken, you know? So that manifests itself into your own personal life. But if you spend all day long getting handshakes, right? Thank you for this. Thank you. Thank you. You know, you helped me out months ago. I just wanted to say I appreciate it. And, you know, whatever the case may be, if you change your tone of your conversations and if you change your role in the community to being support-based and a friend and a peer-to-peer, what happens is you go home smiling. You're turning the radio up. Can't wait for work the next day. That is going to infiltrate your personal life and all aspects of it. And so if you hear somebody say, you know, I don't take my work home with me, call them out because it's wrong. You do. Every call, and I touched on this a second ago, but it doesn't matter what type of call it is. If it's something as simple as a dog at large, or if it's something that might be a little bit more complex, that might require a little bit more thought, that might require a potential citation at the end of this process, right? You don't know yet. But every single call is an opportunity to establish relationships. Relationships are key here. Relationships are, like I said a second ago, the beating heart of this entire operation. And you have to be authentic. If you don't really care, or if you don't really believe, or if you don't really care about the people and the pets of your community, it's not going to come across as intended. And an example of this is, so I've seen personally people that would donate a bag of dog food and then immediately go for like a picture or a selfie or something like that. And without necessarily asking, or without like, it just becomes a TV show, or it becomes a show. You're out for likes. You're not out for actually helping. Now, that isn't to say that it isn't important to get your good work out to the community via social media. That's another point that we'll touch on, but there's a way to do it, right? And you have to be authentic in your operation. And if you're not doing that, then once again, it's going to have unintended consequences. You're not going to be seen as a resource. You're going to be seen as somebody who comes in with a savior mindset, which isn't what we're trying to accomplish here. So let's talk about this, both ends of the spectrum here, running at large. These are true stories. So Miss Vicky, she called up one day and about her neighbor. Her neighbor had just moved in and her dog, the neighbor's dog was running loose, right? Peeing on the flowers, pooping in her yard. We've all heard this call 400,000 times. It's one of the most common calls that you'll receive, right? My neighbor lets their dog run loose. It gets into my yard. So we respond, and one of our officers, she goes to the complainant's house, gets all the information. Complainant said, yeah, I got pictures. I'm willing to go to court, blah, blah, blah. Well, what she did next was really important. She goes to the owner's house, and instead of taking the tone of, yeah, I got proof of your dog being loose, you know, I'm here to issue citations, we're going to go to court, here's your court date, sign here, have a good day. Instead of that, or any manifestation of that, what she did was she provided a copy of the ordinances, provided a bag of dog food, 2 leashes, 2 collars, and a couple dog toys. And said, you know, and I didn't know if you know this, but in Fulton County, it's illegal for your animals to run loose. You know, and just walk through the process, just walk through how, you know, we're going to issue a warning for this, but, you know, just so you know, moving forward, if you ever need any assistance, or if you ever need any dog food, or if your neighbors need anything, here's my business card. Feel free to give me a call. If I don't answer, shoot me a message. Well, that tone of that conversation not only impacted the pet owner, who then became a key member of our community in terms of support, but also with the complainant. So she shows up the next day to work, and Vicky is there filling out a volunteer form, right? She was blown away at the professionalism. She was blown away at the way that it's just not something that you would expect from animal services, right? You're used to calling animal control and they show up, either pick up the dogs, issue citations, and get on out of there, right? No, we're changing the tone. And what happened out of this is we got a volunteer, we got resources, and we got a friend in our community that is actually a key member of that community, all off of one phone call saying my neighbor's dog got loose. Now, I understand not every single running at large call is going to happen this way. I know that, but it will never happen this way if you don't implement this type of philosophy. Let's talk about something a little bit more complicated, right? Now, this is not a real picture of the house, but this is a real story. But put yourself in the shoes for a second. So you pull up on scene as an animal control officer to a barking dog potential neglect complaint. And this is what you see. Now, what you hear is a symphony of barking in the background, a symphony. You don't know how many dogs there are. You can't see back there. But what you can see is 2 dogs on the left side of the house, tethered with 1 doghouse. Nobody home. Knock on the door, nobody home, right? No priors at this address. What do you do now? It's a complicated situation. There's 100 ways that this could go. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Nothing's black and white. So don't rush to one end of that spectrum, right? Just because it looks a little bad, it doesn't look great, right? There might be some trash in the yard. The dogs are tethered with sharing a dog house, a bunch of dogs in the back. One would be inclined across this country to just go ahead, get police out, we're impounding the dogs, issuing citations, all of that, just off of the visuals of the situation. Don't rush to judgment yet, right? Here's some things to consider. A, are the dogs confined? Will the dogs get out of this yard and potentially harm anybody in the community, right? That's a very important question to ask yourself. In this case, all of the dogs were confined, right? There was no fear in my mind of anybody getting hurt from these animals. The health of the dogs were healthy, right? They were of good weight. I could see bowls in the yard. I couldn't verify if they had water, but I could see bowls in the yard, and the dogs were at a good weight, did not show any signs of overheating or anything of that nature, or dehydration. Just looked like healthy dogs. Behavior of the dogs. Now, these dogs were barking. These dogs were barking very much, right? They were quite reactive, to say the least. And I don't want to use the term aggressive because they were just protecting their property. I'm not saying they were aggressive dogs, but I will say that these dogs would not show well in a shelter environment, right? To say the very least. And we all know animals, with this temperament typically don't stand a good chance in a overcrowded shelter. So that's something to consider there as well. Legalities, is there anything illegal? Yeah, there were a couple minor infractions, there were a couple minor infractions, but nothing in my mind that would dictate exigent circumstances or there was nothing that says that these dogs need to go right now. Other than visually, it just looked bad. And were there priors? No priors, no contact information, nothing. But what there was people playing poker on the corner. In Atlanta, that's a common thing. So I go up to these guys and I'm like, hey, do you know who owns these dogs? I just want to get in touch with them. And they were like, no, but I explained my goals and my intent, right? I had at this point developed relationships with home improvement stores, right? And so I had scrap plywood on the top of my truck. And I pointed at it. I was like, look, I have plywood, resources. I'm here to help. My goal here is not to impound the animals, right? My goal is to get them up to compliance. And then provide further support if necessary. Like, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm just here to help the animals. And boom, next thing you know, they're on the phone with the owner. He'll be back in 10 minutes. So if that doesn't show you just off the rip, right, before the story's even completed, that shifting your tone can get you information. So owner's on his way back, 10 minutes. So I could either go back to my truck, scroll Facebook for 10 minutes. I can go start writing up my report. No, I asked them if they had another seat so I could play poker with them for 10 minutes. And I did. I sat down and I played poker with these guys until the owner showed up. He hopped out of the back of a truck, came up to us, and basically the friends that I had built playing poker automatically decompressed. And it was the ultimate form of conflict mitigation, because he got out of the truck a little hot. But then whenever I had my friends already, no, we're good. He's just here to help. And so he went from up here to down here in a heartbeat. And this is what I found on the property. So there were 2 dogs on the left side, like I mentioned, tethered, sharing a dog house. And there were 4 in the backyard, each with their own dog houses, each tethered. Now, our ordinances across the country are going to be different, right? Some places have tethering laws, some don't. And I'm not necessarily talking about tethering here or how to investigate this type of call. I'm just showing you how a shift of perspective and tone can actually be beneficial even in the most complicated of situations. So a couple things here to consider is a couple of these dog houses were not necessarily up to standard for our ordinances, but all it takes is a few materials, right? A few nails, a few pieces of plywood and a hammer, and they would have been compliant. And so this is what I saw. Now, one important thing to consider here too is in the backyard, one of the most fruitful and bountiful gardens you have ever seen in your entire life. It was crazy. This guy was growing tomatoes as big as your head, and his name is Eddie, but Eddie was growing tomatoes as big as your head. And I still to this day have no idea how he does it. It was wild. But another thing to consider is all of these dogs loved him, and he loved these dogs. Like, they were going crazy at me, barking. Obviously I'm a stranger at the property, but when he showed up, each one of these dogs started wiggling, right? Doing the whole entire body wag. Could not wait to see him. So I just want that's also plays into this, right? The behavior and temperament of the dogs as well as the owner. The owner here, Eddie, had gotten every single one of these dogs from people who had previously abandoned them, right? And so he's out there literally doing animal control's work to a certain extent, getting them off the street, giving them a home, giving them love, giving them food, giving them shelter, and giving them water. That type of person should not be punished. That type of person should be assisted. And so before you rush to judgment based on visuals, find out what's really going on. This is him. This is Eddie. Still a friend of mine, right? Every time I was in the neighborhood, I would stop by and I would give him some dog food, or I would give him some leash, whatever he needed that day. And this is after he had already obtained compliance with, repairing the dog houses, some of our tethering ordinances, cleaning up the yard a bit, making sure the animals have water, teaching them tips on how to keep the dogs from flipping over their water bowls. Sometimes that's all it takes. And He ended up being a really, really good friend of mine and still is to this day. Once again, I don't know how he does it, but he grows these tomatoes that are just absolutely incredible. Create a culture of meeting residents where they are, right? Resolve the root cause. Be proactive in the way that we handle animal control cases. Everything from dogs running at large to cruelty, everything in between can be proactively addressed so that you can reduce your call volume in the future and at the same time build relationships. It's an excellent quote right here. Some resources that I would always keep on the truck. First and foremost, dog food, right? Dog food. I try to be humble when I mention this, but I did coin the nickname Dog Food Man in Atlanta. And like when I was riding down the street, people would come running out to my truck like I was the ice cream man. Like they knew that I had dog food, and it didn't matter which part of Fulton County I was in, right? From the areas that are classically underserved to the areas that are wealthy, you know, people knew that I was about the pets, no matter who you are, where you come from, here to help. And so yeah, dog food is an important one. Dog food. Did I mention cat food? Dog food, and dog food. Dog food, I can't tell you how important and influential it was throughout my career. It becomes an influx to where once there's a call out to the community, right? The community responds, and you will have so much dog food that you don't know what to do with it. So give it out, and make sure that whenever you give it out, you don't give it out and like, yeah, you're welcome. You know, don't take that tone to it. I would always say like, well, I didn't buy it and I'm not going to eat it, so you're welcome to have it, you know, and make it to where it's more of a peer-to-peer versus a savior mindset. I'm here to provide all of these resources for this. You know, don't take that tone and approach. Be authentic, be kind, be genuine. And on a real note, some further resources to keep on your truck that have helped me and numerous agencies across the country. People are coming out in forces to talk about this and what they keep on their trucks. Leashes, treats, coloring books, flyers, and dog cat toys. And there's more, don't get me wrong. But coloring books, I want to touch on that real quick. So Maddie's Fund has the ability to get free coloring books sent to your door. Boom. And now these coloring books are also animal welfare related. Boom. I can't think of a better resource to provide out, you know, especially with the kids, because kids will provide information. We all know kids don't hold back. You go to a kid, they don't care about telling on their neighbor. They'll let you know everything there is to know about the situation. They'll even tell on themselves. But, you know, make sure that we include, right? Be inclusive in the way that we work. Provide coloring books for the kids, stickers for the kids, upcoming events, flyers, spay and neuter, whatever the case may be, whatever your organization may have access to. Get it out to the community, and get it out through the field service officers. Oftentimes the field service is looked at as a separate entity as the shelter. We'll talk about this in just a second, but that's kind of defeating the overall mission, right? One team, one mission. And whenever we're all cohesively in line with what's happening, we essentially have a street team, an action team full of animal control officers that are helping the shelter and the operations and helping to reduce these shelter euthanasias by one way or another. So make sure everybody's on the same page, make sure everybody is putting out the same information, and everybody's bought into one team, one mission. Because while there's silos within your departments, what ends up happening is, oh, they're good, but they're bad, you know, and we need to bring this all together so where what we're dealing with is one cohesive department and organization. Further resources, depending on your ordinances, runner cables are big. You could have those donated to you. Amazon wish lists are big. You can go on there and just put in what type of resources you need and explain the why. Make sure you tell people why you need these resources. Taking a page off of one of my coworkers' books. Always address the why. Stuffed animals. All right, so there was this one time, so we got donated like countless amount of old stuffed animals from PetSmart or Petco or one of the pet supply stores. Ton of them, all from like a year ago. It was like this Christmas promotion or something. But we got a bunch of them and nobody was donating them out. So I like literally got half of them and I took them up to a local park. I got one of the parents and I told the parent, hey, I got all these free stuffed animals. Welcome to all these kids. I just come get them. Next thing you know, there was like a flood of kids running up to the animal control truck to get their stuffed animal. Well, I ran out. So I go up and I got the rest of them. Boom, the same thing happened. Just an absolute flood of people coming to get these stuffed animals. It was all free. It was all donated. Now, there's a way to tie this back into itself. So if I had documented that a little bit more, right? Gotten maybe a quick video of these kids coming and getting all these stuffed animals. And then I took it back to that pet supply store. What ends up happening is they're going to be more inclined to do more of that. They might send that information, that video to their regional teams. And then they might even make national. And all of a sudden there's a whole entire movement based behind one small video. So make sure that the people who donate things to you hear back from you, even if that's just a thank you, right? Tie it back into itself, and that encourages future retention, donor retention, as well as donations. All right, toolboxes. Make sure you keep a toolbox on your truck, right? A well-stocked toolbox. If you can't get one, if you don't have the resources for one, find a way, because it is really important to be able to, on the fly, fix things, repair things. And once again, it's the thought that counts. Like, yeah, I got a toolbox on the truck. Let's see if we can fix it. If I can't, maybe I can get another officer out here with a different tool, whatever, however that conversation goes. Make sure you have the ability to fix fences. Goes a long way. So I just talked about this with the departmental silos, right? Tear those walls down now as much as you can. Go out, have meetings, right? All staff meetings. Do, I know COVID makes it difficult, but events, maybe do a kickball tournament. I love those kickball tournaments, right? Your shelter staff can be your greatest asset as well. So if you lost your dog, you don't know where it went, you're going to go to the local shelter and talk to somebody there about it, right? Well, why not open communication with the shelter staff? Hey, have you seen a chocolate lab come in today? Or, you know, vice versa. And being on the phone and being able to communicate with people that are actively inside of the shelter. This includes front desk. This includes dispatchers. Access to information equals saving lives. And so if you have more information and you break down these silos, break down these walls, you're going to have a more cohesive team that wants to help and support one another, right? If you explain the why to the shelter staff, why am I calling you and asking you if somebody came in looking for a brown chocolate lab? It's because I don't want to bring it in, right? They don't want animals coming in, but sometimes animal control has to. So naturally there's a silo that takes place. But if we, cross-training, having the shelter staff ride along with officers, having the officers work in the shelter, having officers do dispatch, having dispatch do front desk. If you cross-train and bring your whole entire organization together, everybody will be on a more cohesive page with the same message, with the same ideals and the same goals. And once again, my favorite term, force multiplier. I love every single one of these people, by the way. Still to this day, what's up, my Atlanta folks? All right, some easy strategies to maximize your resources. This is a common thing with agencies that I currently work with across the country that have limited resources. They don't have a room flooding with dog food yet. And I do say yet, because it is possible. But they don't have this much resources. So how do you maximize it, right? Well, we've all seen that you get one of those big old bag of dog food and put it into 15 different bags or however many different bags. Now you can maximize your impact. Those coloring books I had mentioned. Think outside of the animal welfare industry here for a second as well. Think about the homeless population. And these are people that we're talking about, not the homeless people, right? These are real, actual people that can help not only provide, assistance in your job, but you can help them too. And now you're bringing your entire community together. the businesses, the homeless, no matter who you're talking about is part of the community, and the community is the solution to our goals. So I would do a jacket drive. I know a bunch of organizations across the country do the same thing, right? They just get their staff, they put out an email, say, hey, if you have an old jacket, bring it in. Just one is all we need. Now we got 30, 40, whatever, how many people brought in jackets that you can give out to people in the wintertime, you know? And at the same time, I can't think of anybody better to help provide information about where a dog might live, or if you've ever seen this dog before, than somebody who literally lives there. So don't overlook this population of people. And if anything, bring them into your circle, bring them into your daily life. The same way that we do it with our shelter staff and the field officers, just bring everybody together on the same page. And you're going to start to see traction take place. Old evidence. Now this one's ask your boss. Don't just go around doing this yet. But if there has been a case that he's either been dismissed, or if there's a case that where you impounded the evidence from a cruelty, well, no matter what the case is, talk to your supervisor, talk to your management about possibly reutilizing some of that evidence, right? Clean it up. Now you have 3 more dog houses that you can give out. But once again, this is something that you need to clear with your supervisors. Data. I could do a full hour presentation just simply on data, because data is very important, right? If you know where the least amount of veterinarians are in your community, right? We call them veterinarian deserts. That's where you need to focus all your attention, or at least all of your resources, to say the least. Don't go to those neighborhoods and do sweeps, right? With citations. Go to those neighborhoods and do the opposite. Do sweeps of help and assistance. Let people know that hey, there's the least amount of veterinarians in this area. So anything we can do to help you out, we will do. And make sure you target, if you only have 4 bags of dog food, where are those 4 bags going, right? You can either use anecdotal information or you can use proof, right? You can look up where's the most amount of animal neglect cases. Well, that's where the resources need to go, because that's the difference between neglect and cruelty, right? Neglect requires assistance and resources and potentially information, sharing that information about how to properly care, whatever the case may be. And I don't like using the term educate, right? I don't like saying, oh, we need to educate our community, because now you're taking this to this, right? You're not a peer-to-peer, and peer-to-peer sticks. So sharing information with our communities, putting the resources in the most underserved areas where there's the most neglect cases, is going to help you reduce the amount of cruelty cases in the end. And with cruelty is intended. Cruelty is like, and I have the intent to either fail to provide care or intent to harm. Check your ordinances on your exact definitions, obviously, but for the most part, neglect requires resources and assistance. Cruelty is just a manifestation of neglect left unattended. Nothing's black and white. I recognize that, but a majority of the time that's the case. So data. Put your data in properly. If you have shelter software that can create these heat maps, have monthly meetings with an all staff, right? Make sure that everybody is involved with the plan, with the strategies, and everything that goes along with it. Familiarize community members with your mission. Utilize social media for this. Don't wait, right? You don't need to sit back and say, oh man, we don't have any dog food. Nothing I can do. Nothing poor little me can do. Go out there and get it, right? If you go to local pet supplies, ask for the manager. Say, hey, my name is Nick. I'm with Animal Services. I've been trying to give out more and more resources to the community to try to help X, Y, and Z, however you want to phrase it. And I was hoping to see if I could develop a relationship with you, and so that I can get any of the products that you're throwing away donated to us, so that we can actually redistribute it back out to the community. Do that for every pet store in your area. Do that for every Dollar Tree. Do that for every, you don't have to be a manager or a supervisor or a chief to do this. You can go out and try to source your own stuff. Putting out Facebook posts, being vocal about what you are doing and why you are doing it and the impact that it is having. So this is what I was talking to earlier, closing that loop. Go back out to that person and say, thank you so much for the donation. Like, this is the impact that it made. Once again, thank you. Have a good day. Right. And now that person's going to be more inclined to continue to donate. And if not donate, spread the word to those other major players that can help influence that program that you may be running. So this is from this concept of utilizing the community as a whole, right? Including businesses, including key stakeholders, no matter what, isn't a new concept. It's actually proven a long time ago that this is an appropriate way. It's just now being embraced, by animal services. This is a great resource. If you're curious, check it out. The Bureau of Justice put out, I mean, this is years and years and years ago. I want to say like 94 or something like that. This came out. But, really focus on the key members of your community. That includes businesses, right? We just talked about that. Groomers, no matter what, home improvement stores. We're working with one organization right now that blew my mind what they do. So they go to Home Depots and they ask if they can put together some type of kit in an event to where once a month people can come in and learn how to build their own doghouse, right? It's a whole event. There's professionals out there. These are the types of wood that you need. These are the nails that you need and how many of each. And so people come in the community, and this is super popular. They'll come in and just watch how to build a doghouse. And then there'll be doghouse kits to where you can buy, bam, 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 take it home with you. And now you know how to build the doghouse. Little things like that are not only going to affect the animal because now they have shelter, but they're going to show the community of where your heart lies. You really care about this stuff. And you wouldn't be doing all this if you didn't really care. It's it's just, the impact is impressive. To be clear, there is differences between engagement and outreach. A lot of times these lines get crossed, and personally, I don't really care. I just care if you're being genuine, and if you really care about your people and the pets of your community, it'll naturally take care of itself. But to be clear, there are differences. Engagement versus outreach. Outreach is like the event that you hold, right? The spay neuter event, or the massive vaccination event, or the adoption event, where you're going out and you're interacting with people, but you're providing an end goal, right? You have it's an event, but you can engage with people at that event. And I hope that kind of clarifies the difference between the two. But yeah, I just wanted to make that be clear that, like it says here, the flow it creates is one way, right? Engagement is different from outreach. That's from Jose here. Excellent quote. I'm gonna sit back for a second, let y'all read this. Wow, right? This sums it up. Get involved in filling a need, right? Understand the problems from your community's perspective. Good stuff. All right, so here are some resources. If you don't know, you need to know. This Humane Animal Control Manual is epic. It is comprehensive. It is in depth. It is my holy grail of resources in terms of today's animal control. It really covers everything I talked about today and more and more and more and more and more. So this is available online. If you go to our website, you can find it. There's a ton of resources outside of this, such as our playbooks. The playbooks are a little bit more digestible, right? You can take 10 minutes and learn something new. Where the Humane Animal Control Manual is very, very in depth. And I recommend with this Humane Animal Control Manual, if you are a supervisor of some kind, try to have your team read through one chapter a week or one chapter a month, and then come together as a team and talk about it. Even if you don't like it, just come together and talk about it, because it's happening all across the country. And this is a great reflection of all the work that's going on. That's all I got for you. Look, I appreciate you joining me today. I hope that you're going to be joining me over the next 2 sessions today. The links are on the same page that you signed up for this one, and I look forward to it. Typically there'll be some time to do some Q&A. Do we have anything, while we still have a few minutes, any questions that anybody wants to ask, or comments, or things that you're doing in your community and your organization that I could take with me and share with other organizations across the country? And if not, there's my email, right? Shoot me a message and tell me if you liked it. Tell me if you didn't like it. Tell me some of the things that you are doing, because I really do care and I really do want to know about it. I hate to be like me. This is what I've done. This is what I've done. People are doing this all across the country, and not just this, but even more creative things that I haven't even thought of, right? Really, really cool work. And if you're doing cool work, shoot me a message. Let me know what you're doing. And if you'd like any more further support, once again, send me an email. I look forward to it. I love this job. I love this profession, and I really hope to change the narrative around the dog catcher. So thank you for joining me. Have a good day. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.